Hey, hey, welcome to a new episode. I am Dagny,
I am Damali.
and in this episode, we want to discuss with you the dynamics around generational cycles, dealing with generational challenges as well as generational strengths. To start, let's share the beginning of our experience individually in terms of
Mhm.
recognizing patterns within us that got us to start evolving, healing, and being more accepting. So you can go ahead and go first, Damali. Go ahead.
All right, yeah. Yeah, so I'm sure you guys always, that's been going around a lot about generational trauma or generational strength or curses. And I definitely have seen it a lot more as I get older. Of course, when I was younger, did not see anything at all, of
Mm,
course. 'Cause you don't notice things as much, but as you're growing older, you kind of start seeing more like patterns and things that your parents are doing and that you're doing and that younger siblings or other family are doing. And of course, when you realize this, you have to it. I guess I suppose I did notice some of it, I guess, like as a teenager, but couldn't really put my finger on it.
mm,
But sometimes there was some like tension sometimes, or with I don't know, older, either for you, I don't know if it's like parents or just grandpa or older people. Everyone I think can relate to that, where you're starting to grow up and be like independent, but like you're still a child, and sometimes sometimes hear things or go through things that you're like, what, why is this? Why is this person so angry about this? What happened? What's going
mhm,
on?
mhm,
Um, but for this podcast, we don't want to just talk about like, oh, this horrible things happening or all the trauma people are going through. Like, we kind of want to talk about the more I guess like it's more about growth, I think, like more
mm,
about growth and like positivity. And if you think or feel that there's some room for improvement, then we could do it from like a positive place kind of thing. Um, and I think the main thing is to have like I guess I would say like grace for people. Like I don't know if you notice this, but when you're on a journey of healing and finding yourself and figuring yourself out, if there are other people that are not there yet, sometimes you it can make you maybe feel like frustrated and be like, why
mm.
don't they get where I'm coming from? Like
Yeah, yeah.
this is where the light is. Why won't they go on the light? Kind of thing.
Yes.
And of course, of course, still working on that. But I guess the older I get, the more I see that adult to your adults, as they say,
Hmm.
are can be lost too sometimes, and sometimes they do what they think is best because they don't know any other way, or it's the way that they grew up, or for example, you see your parents doing something when you were a child that you didn't like, and so when you get older, you make sure not to do that same thing. But sometimes maybe you don't always realize it, or it's done in a very um like two extremes, right? Like they did
Mm,
this bad thing, so you're going to go complete to the other side and not do, and sometimes like it doesn't have to be that, I don't know, aggressive or dramatic sometimes.
mhm, mhm.
So yeah, so for me, I guess as I've gotten in my old age, just kidding, as I've gotten older, I can be a bit more um kind about it. I feel
Mm,
like when I was younger, I didn't always understand it, and I was like, why are certain people acting a certain way or doing this, or parents doing certain things? And I'm like, oh, okay, because their own like they had their own lives before I came around. Like, they had their own things they were going through and their own views and values and all this stuff. And you can't expect them to, even though they seem like, for me, like you think your parents are like perfect and superheroes and stuff, but like they're normal people, and everyone has their own thing they're going through. And I've heard similar things from like friends also, where friends also recognize that their parents are a certain way, or guardians of theirs act a certain way that maybe they don't want to do the same as or emulate, or certain things they no longer serve them.
mm,
And like, or this, I don't know if people have gone through this, where someone close to you and you really want to help them, but like you can't help them, or they don't let you, or they don't see what you're doing as help, and then they turn around and be like, oh, what do you, like, you're the problem kind of thing, but like
mhm,
you're just trying to help. And I think as I get older, I think most people realize this. Like, if people don't want help or they're going on their own path, like you can't walk with them on their own path. Like, everyone
Mm-hmm.
has to find their healing and their truth on their own a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And you can give them guidance, but you can't, like, what's that saying, that cliche saying where you can bring the horse to the water,
Right.
but you can't make the horse drink, right?
Exactly. Or even
Yeah, so
better,
that's
like
kind of
on
like
the in the Matrix, where it's like, I can take
oh,
you to the door. I can
oh
show
my
you the
gosh.
door, but you have to open it and walk through it.
Yes,
Yes.
you do. Do you want to choose
Mm-hmm.
the blue pill or the red
Mm-hmm.
pill? No, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Matrix fans out there, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So in a nutshell, that's kind of been my kind of experience with it, and I just think that, and of course it changes. If you're living with the people or not living with certain people or living with loved ones or not, obviously that changes, and like independence is just that you have to figure things out like on your own. And sometimes, like, not everyone will agree with the way that you do things, but that's kind of how, like, that's what it means to grow up, right? You have to do your own thing, right? um so yeah, so I think that the main thing we want to kind of focus on is like how, if you realize there's generational trauma or curses or growth that can happen, like, what do you do about that? And like, how do
Mm-hmm.
you navigate that when you don't, there's not really a, like, guidebook for it,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it's concerning your loved ones and the people you care about
Mm-hmm.
and your family. How do you navigate that and try to deal with that or get through those kind of uh, the growth and healing? Because it's not only about the healing of yourself, it's also the healing of, everyone else and generations before and ancestors, and like breaking
Mm-hmm.
the chain of things that have kept on happening. And I think also we, without realizing it, I think we carry the positives and the bad things of our ancestors. I think,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if y'all are into interest think about that or believe agree with that, but we carry any kind of, I mean, good things too, but also any scars or issues or problems that our ancestors had or generations before. I think we carry it, even like, I don't think we're like born as like a completely blank slate. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's just, oh, you're born from just wherever and that's it. No, I think you carry things, and they kind of, and depending on how your life is, they kind of can grow in you or be thrown off. And I think that's why sometimes we also, maybe other people also feel like they're kind of alone in certain, when they're on their path of wherever they're going, there's moments of feeling alone or feeling isolated or feeling like, why do these things happen? And I don't understand what it means. And
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes that could mean it's connected to something else from before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my thoughts and to start kind of thing. Um, so yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dagny, what about you? What
Yeah.
do you think about that?
I feel for me, in terms of how that started for me, and then I'll like respond because there are some things you said also that I'm like, yes, I resonate with that. I want to like
Mm,
piggyback on that.
off of that.
Yes. So I think for me, actually, it started when I ended up having to pivot and take more control over my health. And when I went vegetarian and then also later became vegan. And
Mm,
initially during that time, I was more focused on, oh, okay, we're trying to figure out how can I not be in pain anymore. So it was more of technically a physical thing. But going through that gradually became more and more of a spiritual thing. And then gradually became more and more of like, let me learn a little bit about myself because the source of this is not just a physical thing. Like the physical thing is actually a symptom of something much deeper that I'm dealing with. And noted, like when you noted about we carry things. And my journey then went on with trying to sift through the things that I'm carrying that I can release now that possibly was never really mine to continue. Like I felt called that it's no longer, I don't need to continue carrying this. And for me, it tended to feel like this depth of sorrow that I don't understand where it's coming from because like nothing happened
like,
today. Like
it's
it's
not
where is
mine.
this? This is not mine, but it feels familiar. But why, it's like, it feels like sorrow from someone who's like 5,000 years old. Why am I feeling this? Like how in the movies you'll be like, what? That's so weird. And I think that got me more into like researching and looking into like this is a thing. And actually, if you are sensitive or do believe in that spirituality and ancestors and how we carry things, or even some have noted of like when we're kind of always, if you look at it in terms of how we're born, technically as women, our womb holds the same amount of eggs when we're born, which means technically we were present throughout what our mother goes through, but we were also present throughout what our grandmother went through. We're also present throughout, like everybody, technically a part of us is present with everything they are going through. So it's imprinted, a lot of stuff is imprinted on our DNA, I think spiritually, in a way that some of it is strength and magical and amazing and really beautiful. And then others of it is also beautiful, but also painful and heavy. And I feel each generation then has the mission, if they so choose to accept it, to figure out how to navigate, how do you want to balance both of those? And for me, in this lifetime, I have felt my mission has been balancing it not only for the present, but very much focused on balancing it for the benefit of future generations or benefit of others, even if they are people who I may not meet because they'll happen much later after I'm gone, kind of thing. But I've been very focused, or very I find it very important to make sure that nobody after me should have to repeat certain lessons that I have to go through, especially if I see that this lesson has happened before. So why is it happening again, kind of thing? And so that journey of disentangling yourself then from these things, and then almost finding that you possibly were wearing somewhat of a costume to navigate this, it does feel isolating or frustrating or alienating almost, because since you yourself are changing and evolving and questioning things that maybe others take as normal or have always been okay with, sometimes the response to that can feel like you're being rejected, or why are you stirring up trouble? Nobody else has a problem with this, so it's fine. When it's like, no, actually, we all could be even more magical if we decided to be more accepting and wanting to heal past this or navigate through this, instead of allowing it to just fester and sit and continue to rot, kind of thing. So, and then
not dramatic at all.
Not at all, not at all.
It's
And then
rotting.
I think
it's fine.
For me, I think it has, like, looking at when I started this, which is basically over a decade now, and now, and the side effects of that is this feeling of being a lot more accepting, a lot more respectful, but also a lot more detached, but still more loving and fulfilled, but not like clinging to control or clinging to, no, things need to be a certain way, or I need you to act a certain way, or I need this to be a certain, go a certain way. It's more of more understanding of, actually, like you noted, how everybody is in a different lane when it comes to their soul's journey. And we all have a different mission as well. And the beauty of that is that there is a reason why our paths have crossed, regardless if it's temporary interactions or permanent ones. Like, okay, well, sometimes people's families are not permanent, but anyway, it depending on if they are temporary or permanent interactions. There's like each of us are tasked with giving each other a blessing in the form of like another beautiful puzzle piece to add to your masterpiece, and also to add to my masterpiece. And depending on how accepting we are of that, can be a beautiful experience, or it can be a little triggering, because we're not all on the same the same part of
Wavelength.
the journey. Yeah, or all on the same wavelength. And so for me, it has been the detachment part has been important because sometimes it can feel hurtful if others that you care about don't get it or don't see it yet or may not want to acknowledge it or sometimes be dismissive of it. And so, and having to understand that this is part of this journey does mean you kind of have to accept that you're doing it in this realm. It may feel like you're alone, but I feel like actually throughout other dimensions, you're never alone. But in certain realms, it looks like it because physically, well, nobody else seems to understand. So I think it's really important inner work because we all are connected to something bigger as well as to each other. And we're actually more alike than we give ourselves credit for. Like the notion that, oh, I'm the only person going through all of this, nobody else can. And it's like, actually, everybody is going through it, but we may not all be comfortable to communicate it out loud. Or it may be difficult to understand others who are communicating out loud because on the internet, it's hit or miss of people who are speaking their truth or kind of sensationalizing this type of experience. So for me, it really has broadened my horizons in terms of understanding of myself, in terms of purpose, in terms of being more intentional with every aspect of my life, uh, in a way that feels more authentic than just continuing going through the motions of the cycles that have occurred previously.
Right. Yeah. 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 I agree. And to piggyback off of that, since
Yes,
we're still
yes.
using that term, yeah, I remember seeing this meme one time. I think it was Viola Davis that shared it, I forgot who shared it, but it was like, it was a picture of like, oh, this is how it feels like to be healing, and then it had like a picture, like a video of a little girl on those little, those cups that spin in
Mm.
Disney, and she was like, oh, like I want to get off, like I be here, like because normally when I hear the name when you hear the word healing, what do you think? Oh, positive, great, amazing
Mm-hmm.
healing. But actually, it's quite crazy and chaotic and painful, and I kind of want to get off the train. Like, you
There
know
you
what I
go.
mean? It's not always the best thing.
Yes.
But then to continue with this metaphor,
Mm.
I think it's the same thing like when you cut yourself, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when you first cut yourself, it hurts, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you're really like try getting a really bad paper cut. It hurts so bad, right? It hurts
Mm-hmm.
and then you bleed and then you have to bleed and then eventually the skin covers up slowly as it heals, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like healing is kind of like that too, where it has to hurt first and then you can get to the other side. So you have to get
Mm-hmm.
through all this other muck and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it can feel like kind of like a roller coaster that doesn't come off, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that the more we get to knowing ourselves and do our inner work and healing and not try to be too much on the outside all the time and be
Mm-hmm.
more internal, I think it can make us, I hope that I become kinder because
Mm.
of it. I hope
Yes.
because since I think I'm a bit more like I can, I guess, see people more, I guess, in some ways where in the past I might have been annoyed by not only like family or friends or people I know where they're doing something that is obviously not the way to do stuff, and I'm like, why can't they just do this instead? Like, why are they?
Mm-hmm.
You're insisting on staying in a place that's not. It's not serving you, but you won't do
Yes.
anything different. I'm like, why can't they just? And you try to shake people and be like, just if you do this, then you'll figure it out.
Mm.
But everyone has to get there at their own time.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that's nice is that sometimes like if you just sit back and just not do anything, they eventually get to where they have to get to,
Right.
kind of thing. And I think I can think about other like friends and stuff where maybe there's something that's really painful for them, and then they figure out some way to deal with it, and it's like, oh, okay, then never mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I try, and the same thing with like things of advice or things like that. Like I think when I was younger, I'd be more willing to be like, oh, I'm going to give them all this advice, and I have all this great stuff to do that will help them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, wait, but it didn't really help because that's not where
Mm-hmm.
they're at. So I think now I try to kind of not trying to give too much advice, just kind of see what they're doing because people sometimes need to do their own stuff. But I do think I also feel like there's a sense of detachment sometimes too. Like when things are happening, I'm like not as I try not to be as rattled by them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think when I was younger, I probably would become more bothered.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm like, you know what? this is the way things happen. This is the way life is. You just do whatever you're given. You just deal with it the way that you can, kind of thing. Um, and also, I think like I wonder if like things like deja vu and
Mm,
stuff or jamais vu. No, I think a deja vu is the one I want to say,
mm,
where you think that something already happened, but like it didn't, but you
mhm,
feel like it did. I don't
mm,
know. That's also connected to ancestors or people before us. Like I don't
mhm,
know, you know. Um, but yeah, and having those moments of like you feel down or sad, like just because, and you don't really
mhm,
know why. And whether and for girls, whether you're on your period or not, kind of thing. Like
mhm,
sometimes you just feel down and like nothing really happened and there's no explanation for it. And I wonder if that also is because you're carrying things from before,
mhm, mhm,
from people like that. And I think it does take work and you have to be patient with yourself and there will be like ups and downs to it. And I think we should be kinder and kind of if people close to us are not there yet, understanding and be, I mean, of course you have to protect yourself too. You don't want to be because you're affected, obviously you're affected by other people's emotional situation, right?
mm,
But it's been interesting dealing with it. It can be kind of lonely and sad and scary because sometimes like when I didn't know any of this and we could just, we were just playing and it's fine. Whereas the older you get, you're like, oh, I'm an adult now. I can't like it's like one of those things where like you can't unsee it kind of
mhm,
thing. Like it
mhm.
makes me think of when you learn that Santa is not real.
Yeah.
And oh, sorry, spoiler alert. Santa is not real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, and you can't go back to believing that Santa exists, right?
Mm,
Like it's like he doesn't exist. Get over it. It's just your dad putting
mhm,
cookies there or whoever, whatever.
mhm,
You know what I mean? And I feel like, but there is strength in that. I feel, and I remember here, I don't know, it was a quote, I don't know where I heard, but some quote I heard where there is a freedom in not being understood. I think that was
mm,
what it was, where there's a freedom of like, oh, okay, no, not everyone gets it. People that you think should get it don't get it. Okay, but
mhm,
it's like, okay, it's not necessarily a bad thing, I think. And I think when I was younger, I went through that too, where this feeling of like, what, like I understand it, but like others don't kind of thing, or others don't, and I also don't understand it. And I'm like, so what am I supposed to do? And it's like,
mhm,
maybe we're not meant to understand everything. Like maybe that's like the point of part of the points of life is that what can you do with what you're given, even if you
mhm.
don't understand it,
Right.
right? Like
And
you
be
you don't know how
comfortable
to
with the
build
mystery.
this.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Be comfortable with not knowing everything
Mm,
in a world where you're supposed to, in a world where
mhm,
like you're not always given the grace to make mistakes or well, I mean we love hearing stories of like I feel like with it's like a success thing. Like if you succeed, like some of these famous people or
mm,
celebrities, if you succeed, then of course everyone wants to hear about your sob story or what happened to you, or like, oh, I went through all of this stuff and I failed and blah blah, but then finally I was successful. Everyone likes that, but what if you didn't succeed? Like,
mhm,
or what if you didn't get to that point? But you don't
mm,
really, no one, everyone just wants to hear the end result. And it's
mhm,
like, it's not about, it's about what did you go through to get there? And what were the good things and bad things you went through for that? So I think it's definitely a balancing thing to figure out how to deal with it, and to be careful with any like self-talk or doubt and stuff that some of this be your own fault and someone's hearing things from other people or um and in certain spaces too you can be obviously you're affected by the spaces you live in or people around you. And I think of course writing it down is always good. I think
mm,
writing it down to see what what you're going through. And yeah, and I'm not sure if I think you had said this before, like you don't necessarily get a prize for this. Like no one's gonna give you a
mhm.
trophy or like a
Right.
pat on the back for
Yeah.
trying to break generational issues. You know,
Mhm. It's true.
it and it will only it the only way you'll see some fruits of your labor is after the fact, like
Mm,
afterward, right? When you might not be here anymore, right?
mhm, mhm,
So you kind of have to just deal with the fact that it's just you, it's just about healing. If people get it, cool. If they don't, okay. But you just need to know, I know this can be healing. And if you can affect other people like that or help other people in any little way, whether you do something or not, just by you just being you. That I think is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I also think it's still been a struggle for me, but I think as I've gotten older, get like you don't have to like like listen to everything everyone says. Like if people say stuff, like you don't have to be triggered by certain things, I think is what I'm trying to get at. Because sometimes like certain things would like irritate me or something, and I'm like, why am I like just don't be irritated. It's fine. Like it's just that's how they cope, or they're not at a certain part in their journey yet. So they say certain things that don't align with you, but that's okay. Everyone has their own things or paths they have to deal with. And yeah, I think and it's up to you. Like at the end of the year, like and the thing with advice, I think a lot of times when people give advice, like you're always giving it from you, like from
Mm-hmm.
your own way of doing stuff, but the
Mm-hmm.
other person is not you. So but even if they try to do it exactly like you did, it might not work out that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that you just have to be on your own path, and if you can help others in any way, okay. If you can meet people, if you have to meet people halfway, okay. Um, and I also think that I guess another piece of it we can go to is like how the information we get on it, because I feel like nowadays like there's so much information about like trauma and mental health and all of this, and like some of the information is helpful and then some of it is like not so helpful. And like
Mm-hmm.
I think especially with media, sometimes we things, I guess I should say this delicately, but sometimes we like kind of sensationalize stuff, I think, or commercialize things or make money off of people's trauma kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And that's not what it should be about. I think a lot of the healing is very much a personal thing. And I think like just because someone else did this thing that helped them heal doesn't mean it's your story,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you have to get through it yourself. And also I just thought about I don't know if what was her name? She used to be on this Nickelodeon show. Oh, Jeanette McCurdy, I think that's her name.
Okay.
And she was on this Nickelodeon show, and she has this book out. I haven't finished it yet, called "I'm Glad My Mom Died." I think that's
Mm.
the title of it. I don't know if you heard of it,
Okay, no, I
but
think I've seen some tweets about it.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and she's gone. I think she went to talk to Trevor Noah and Drew Barrymore and
Mm.
everything. And for her, I think for her to, I think basically she's one of those child stars that really had a hard time because her
Right.
mom was very like abusive, and then her mom died, and then her dad wasn't really her dad, and she went through a lot, and eating disorders and therapy, all these things she went through. And now she's back with the story, and you can tell that she is in a better place of like healing. And
Mm.
I know she was on like the Drew Barry, and Drew Barrymore obviously went through
Yes.
a lot as
Right.
well. And Drew Barrymore also brought up like, oh, because of what happened to me with my like mom, when I found out I was having kids and they were both girls, like I was like, no, like the same
Mm.
stuff is gonna happen, which
Mm.
is an example of generational
Mm-hmm.
trauma, right? And so, but yeah, I was watching Jeanette McCurdy on Drew Barrymore's show, and I think I was so struck by how she was talking and like her mannerisms, like you could just like it didn't seem like it seemed I mean, I don't know her, but it seemed authentic to me in a
Mm.
way you don't always get from other people you see.
Yeah.
And she was just kind of discussing what she had to go through to find her path. And there's one thing she said about like, I want to do things in an authentic way. Like I don't want, sometimes people do stuff in like fake authentic way. Like they
Mm-hmm.
have all the buzzwords and all of this, like, oh yeah, I found what I have to, I found everything because I did this. And if you just do what I did, then, and it's like, no, like I think true authenticity is quieter, I
Mm-hmm.
think, where you don't
Mm-hmm.
always have to, you know, embellish and stuff. I was just kind of struck by that. How, yeah, so everyone is like on their own journey. And so I think as I get older, trying to have more compassion, more understanding. I haven't fully figured everything out, of course, and I'm sure like other people, I still get triggered by certain things that remind me of my childhood or mistakes that I made, and I wish I could have done something else and things like that. But I think we have to be gentle with people and ourselves. I would say about that.
So in terms
So of course we're
of,
curious. Yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
in
Yeah.
terms of solutions or encouragement, if
Yeah.
maybe the person who is also a part of this conversation we're having, listening in
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
wanting to begin, or maybe they're in the middle of it, or wanting to know if they're on the right track,
Mhm.
I would say to start in terms of sharing what to look
Mhm.
out for. I feel like
Yeah.
limited beliefs is a very big thing that may be difficult to check in with because it's so
Mm.
programmed already as normal
Yeah.
and goes so deep if depending on not only your own circumstances of what you lived in this lifetime, but also looking at your lineage. And for, let's say, I don't want to put people in generalized boxes, but if your lineage is of people who have had to deal with being deprived or being exploited or their lives having to be flipped upside down out of their control, um, due to bigger factors of their country falling apart or they're part of a group that's being um, abused or marginalized. There's a
Mhm.
lot of like survival coping mechanisms that are
Yeah.
kind of encased in limited beliefs that we tend to carry and continue and try to just work with it and that's it. Even if in our own lifetime, we're not dealing with all of those things technically because we're in a different time period, we're living in a different space, and certain resources and stuff are now available when before they were not. So I would say taking note of, because that's something that I've taken note of from for me, of taking note
Mhm.
of, okay, in this lifetime, these are my circumstances, these are privileges that I got, these are challenges I have, and but there's some also beliefs that don't fully correlate with that or are possibly holding me back from how what I am supposed to embody during this journey. And those can those can come through or leak through different parts of your life. Whether do you have limited beliefs around money? Do you feel like
Mhm.
you are worthy of having money or being financially comfortable? It could go around interactions. Do you feel you're worthy of being respected or being loved or being taken care of? Or do you feel you are
Mhm.
worthy of even being seen, being heard, being followed? Because actually, you're supposed to be a leader in this lifetime, not necessarily following everybody else. Looking into those things and taking note of how those patterns in those different areas of your life are reflective of what you see in your family or in your environment. And if they feel
Mhm.
uncomfortable to you, if they feel like, I know everyone else is saying this is where I should be going, or this is what I should be doing, or this is who I'm supposed to be. Oh, all you're supposed to do is just work hard and that's it. Or all you're supposed to do is just you stick with these types of people and that's it. But if it doesn't resonate with you, it's possible that's a calling for you to shift out of that cycle altogether.
Mhm.
And that might
Right.
be scary because there's no blueprint because everybody else around
Yep.
you is following the same path. And you are now being the creative, loving rebel to go on another path. Yes. So that's where, yes, you might dive into like a previous episode of all the self-help content, where part of that is we're looking for an answer of what does this new path look like because nobody else around me has taken it. And then
Yeah.
gradually with that, understanding that that new path, actually, you're already carrying it. You just need to disentangle a lot of these limited beliefs so you can hear it and see it and feel more comfortable going down that way. So for me, I feel that was a beginning aspect of that because I did have was holding limited beliefs around certain things like that of
Mm.
whether it's safe. A lot of that also was either fear based too, of like, oh, well, it's
Yeah.
safer to stick to this one thing. No, it's safer to withdraw. It's safer to not rock the boat. And that's like, well, that was safe for other people, maybe in previous generations because of what they went through. But now is the time to shift out of that because the next generations need to be on a different trajectory now. Out of, and for me, I'm like, we're trying to always try to move the needle away from survival mode into thriving mode because I feel that's what we all
Yes.
deserve. Come on now. Come on now. So,
Amen. Word. Word. That's a word.
so I would say that to start, if either you're wanting to seek more into how can you figure out how does this roll with you, or if you're in the beginning of it, taking note of what type of, like you noted, how are you speaking to yourself? What do you believe about yourself? And how much of that is truly you?
Hmm.
And how much of that are projections and expectations, sort of thing? And it's a very delicate balancing act because the expectations on you and the projections on you, part of that does have to do with culture and society and family. So you
Mm.
don't want to, you got to
Yeah.
respect it still because it's part of what is
You are who you
connecting or
are.
interweaving, your life and your community. So I'm not saying throw it all away, the door and the bathwater. It's not that, but it's a delicate balance of like,
Balance.
you're adding another beautiful golden thread into that quilt. And maybe not everybody will want the golden thread immediately, but in hindsight, they really will appreciate it if you step up and bring that into the masterpiece sort of thing. That
Mm.
is
Yes.
that to start, because we can't do a whole masterclass up in here, but I feel to start,
Exactly.
that would be helpful. I hope you find that helpful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, you're on your own path. Be kind to yourself. Have grace, and like be. I think that saying that the be comfortable with discomfort.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Sometimes this discomfort's not a bad thing. Um, and finding that balance and that grace, and don't be too hard on yourself or other people.
Yes.
When you're going through your healing journey. That we would love to hear about what you guys think about generational trauma and curses and growth and
Yes.
positivity and negativity. Yeah.
Yes. So please let
All
us
right.
know. I think this was a beautiful
Yeah,
conversation. Thank you so
I
much
think
again,
so too.
Zenovia.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, yes. So let us know what your thoughts or where you
Always.
are in your journey, or what else would you like to learn more about this so we know what other aspects of this journey we can share with you. Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate it. And we'll
Yeah.
catch
Thank
you on the
you.
next episode.
All right. Great. Sounds good. Bye.
Bye. Take care.